Once upon a time, Jesus and his disciples were walking through the hills of Galilee. They had just finished ministering to a large crowd, and the disciples, though filled with joy, were also weary from their travels. The journey had been long, and as the sun began to set behind the hills, casting golden rays across the landscape, a calmness settled over the group. They walked in silence for a while, listening to the faint sounds of birds returning to their nests and the soft rustling of leaves in the breeze. Jesus, ever mindful of his disciples' needs, noticed that some of them seemed troubled, weighed down not only by physical exhaustion but by the deeper burdens of their hearts. They had been with him for many months now, learning, witnessing miracles, and sharing his teachings with the people. Yet, despite all they had experienced, there were moments when they doubted themselves, moments when they wondered if they were capable of living up to the calling Jesus had placed on their lives. As they reached a large oak tree on the side of the hill, Jesus motioned for his disciples to stop. "Come rest for a while," he said, his voice full of warmth and compassion. The disciples gratefully sat down beneath the shade of the tree, some leaning back against the sturdy trunk, others stretching out on the grass to ease their aching legs. After a few moments of silence, Jesus looked around at his disciples and saw the questions in their eyes, the uncertainty in their expressions. Peter, always bold, was the first to speak. "Master," he began, "we have seen so much since we have followed you. We have learned your ways, witnessed your power, and yet, sometimes I feel as though I am not growing. I feel like I should be further along in my understanding, more like you. But instead I struggle. How can we truly grow into what you have called us to be?" The other disciples nodded in agreement, their faces reflecting the same concerns. Growth, it seemed, was not coming as easily as they had hoped. They had left behind their old lives, fishing nets, tax booths, and family homes, to follow Jesus. But now they wondered if they were capable of becoming the people he wanted them to be. Jesus smiled gently at them, his gaze full of love and understanding. He knew their hearts, their doubts, their fears, and he also knew the path that lay ahead of them, both the trials and the triumphs they would face. It was time to give them a deeper lesson, one that would help them understand the true nature of growth. "Let me tell you a story," Jesus said, leaning forward slightly, his eyes sparkling with wisdom. The disciples leaned in as well, eager to hear what their teacher had to say. In a small village nestled between two towering mountains, there lived a young man named Isaac. Isaac was known in the village for his boundless enthusiasm and passion for life. He was always filled with big dreams. Dreams of traveling the world, gaining knowledge, and making a meaningful difference in the lives of others. However, despite his dreams, Isaac often felt a deep sense of frustration. No matter how hard he tried, it seemed that he couldn't quite make the progress he desired. Every time he tried to move forward, life would throw obstacles in his path. Obstacles that made him doubt his abilities and question whether he was on the right path at all. One evening, as Isaac sat by the edge of a river near his village, he watched the water flow gently over the stones, wondering if he would ever find his way. A feeling of restlessness stirred in his heart. He had heard stories of an old hermit who lived at the top of a nearby mountain, a man known for his wisdom and insight. Deciding that he needed answers, Isaac resolved to climb the mountain and seek the hermit's counsel. The next morning, with the sun just beginning to rise, Isaac set out on his journey. The mountain was steep and the path was narrow, winding its way through rocky terrain and dense forests. At first, Isaac's heart was light with excitement. He was finally taking action, finally seeking the wisdom that would unlock his potential. But as the hours passed, the climb grew more difficult. The rocks underfoot became sharper, the air thinner, and his legs heavier with each step. Several times Isaac stumbled over the jagged stones, scraping his hands and knees. His muscles ached and doubt began to creep into his mind. What if this journey was too difficult? What if he wasn't strong enough to reach the top? The temptation to turn back was strong, but something deep within him urged him onward. With determination, Isaac pressed forward, even as the sun began to sink behind the horizon, casting the mountain in shadow. After what seemed like an eternity, Isaac finally reached the summit. There, sitting by a small fire, was the hermit, a man with a long, flowing beard and eyes that twinkled with the light of ages. The hermit looked up as Isaac approached, a warm smile spreading across his weathered face. "Welcome, young one," the hermit said, his voice soft but full of strength. "You have come a long way to seek wisdom. What is it that troubles you?" Isaac sat down by the fire, his body aching from the climb, but his heart filled with hope. "I have dreams," Isaac began, "big dreams. But every time I try to move forward, I face obstacles that seem to hold me back. I struggle, I fail, and sometimes I wonder if I'm even capable of growing into the person I want to be. How do I know if I'm on the right path? How can I grow into my potential?" The hermit listened patiently, nodding as Isaac spoke. When Isaac finished, the hermit gazed thoughtfully into the fire before replying. "My son," he began, "growth is not a straight and easy path. It is a journey much like the one you have just undertaken to reach this mountain top. It is filled with challenges, hardships, and moments of doubt. But these challenges are not meant to hinder you. They are meant to shape you." Isaac furrowed his brow, unsure of what the hermit meant. "Shape me?" he asked. The hermit smiled. "Yes," he said. "Every obstacle you face, every struggle you encounter, is like the stones on this mountain. They may seem to slow your progress, but they are actually strengthening you. Just as the rocks made your climb more difficult, they also made your legs stronger, your mind more focused, and your will more determined. Growth is not always about moving quickly. It is about becoming stronger, more resilient, and more capable of withstanding the trials of life." Isaac thought about this for a moment, remembering the many times he had stumbled on the rocks during his climb. It had been hard, painfully hard, but he had made it to the top. "So, you're saying that my struggles are a necessary part of my growth?" Isaac asked. The hermit nodded. "Exactly. Every time you face a challenge, you have the opportunity to grow, whether it is by learning something new, developing patience, or strengthening your resolve. The journey of growth is not defined by how quickly you reach your destination, but by the wisdom and strength you gain along the way. Even when you feel like you are not making progress, you are growing." Isaac's heart swelled with understanding. The obstacles in his life had not been setbacks. They had been opportunities for growth. His struggles had shaped him, just as the rocks on the mountain had shaped his journey. "But how do I know if I'm growing in the right direction?" Isaac asked. "What if I'm on the wrong path?" The hermit smiled again, his eyes full of kindness. "The right path is not always clear from the beginning," he said. "Growth is not about knowing the destination from the start. It is about walking the path with an open heart, being willing to learn, to change, and to trust that as long as you continue forward with faith, you will find your way." Isaac sat in silence for a moment, letting the hermit's words sink in. He realized that growth wasn't about reaching a final goal as quickly as possible. It was about the journey itself, the lessons learned, the strength gained, and the person he was becoming with each step he took. The hermit placed a hand on Isaac's shoulder. "Return to your village," he said gently. "And remember, every challenge is an opportunity. Trust the process and you will grow into the person you are meant to be. With newfound clarity, Isaac thanked the hermit and began his descent from the mountain. Though the path was the same, it no longer seemed as daunting. He no longer feared the rocks or the steep climb. Instead, he saw them as opportunities to strengthen his resolve, deepen his understanding, and grow into the person he was destined to be. When Jesus finished the story, he looked at his disciples, who were listening with rapt attention. The journey of personal growth, he said, is much like Isaac's journey up the mountain. It is filled with trials, doubts, and fears. But these are not things to avoid. They are the very tools that shape you. Every time you stumble, every time you face uncertainty, you are given the chance to grow stronger, wiser, and more resilient. The disciples nodded, understanding the depth of his words. Jesus continued, "Remember this, the process of growth is not meant to be easy, but it is always worth it. Do not fear the challenges you face. Embrace them, learn from them, and trust that your Father in heaven is guiding you through every step of the way. For in the end, it is not the speed of your growth that matters, but the strength and wisdom you gain along the journey." With those words, Jesus rose and continued walking, leading his disciples down the hill and back toward the path of their own personal growth. And so, the lesson was clear. Personal growth is not a straight path without obstacles, but a winding road filled with opportunities for learning, transformation, and the discovery of true strength. The disciples carried this wisdom with them, knowing that with every step they took, they were growing into the people they were meant to be, under the loving guidance of their teacher. This is end of the story. Please like this video and subscribe my channel for more Jesus story like this. May the God watch over you.